Welcome to Miss Macabre. Tonight, we're exploring a chilling true story originally shared on Reddit, an account that comes from another part of the world. We're traveling far from home into the shadows of Guangzhou, China, where an old apartment building hides something sinister. 10 years ago, I moved to Guangzhou for work. Rent was expensive, so I settled for an old concrete apartment building on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't the kind of place anyone would choose if they had money. The stairwells were dim, only half the bulbs worked, and the walls had water stains that looked like shapes watching you. Still, it was cheap, and I thought I'd get used to it. The landlord showed me around and pointed at the unit next door to mine. He said it was empty. Nobody stays there long, he muttered. When I pressed him, he just said the last tenant died inside. Then he laughed it off, but it didn't sound like a joke. The first few nights were uneventful, but around the fourth night, I woke up at 2 and met to the sound of chanting. At first, I thought it was a radio, but the voice wasn't speaking Mandarin. It wasn't Cantonese either. The words were low, guttural, almost like growling syllables repeated in a rhythm. I pressed my ear against the wall. It was definitely coming from the empty apartment. The longer I listened, the more my chest tightened, like the sound itself was pressing against me. When I couldn't take it anymore, I opened my front door. The hallway was dark and silent, but when I turned toward the neighbor's unit, there were fresh, wet red handprints smeared down the doorframe. They were still dripping onto the floor. I froze. My brain told me to run, but my body wouldn't move. I backed into my apartment, slammed the door, and stayed awake until sunrise. In the morning, I checked again. The hallway was spotless. No handprints, nothing on the door. I tried to convince myself I was exhausted, maybe dreaming, but things didn't stop. The following week, I began noticing cold drafts. My bathroom mirror would fog up in the middle of the day, even with no hot water running. Sometimes when I passed the neighbor's unit, I swore I could hear scratching from inside, faint but steady. Then one evening, when I was cooking, I heard a knock on my door. 3 knocks. I opened it immediately. The hallway was empty, except the neighbor's door was cracked open, just slightly. For weeks, it had always been locked tight. I stood there staring at the gap. It was pitch black inside. Then, as clear as day, I heard breathing. Slow, heavy, coming from the darkness. I shut my door and bolted it. A few nights later, it escalated. I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of my door handle rattling. Not just a knock, someone was trying to open it. The chanting started again, louder than ever, but this time it wasn't coming through the walls. It was inside my apartment. I stumbled back, heart racing so fast I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, my chest locked up. Panic attack. My whole body felt like it was shutting down. I ran. I didn't even grab my phone. I flung the door open and sprinted down the hallway barefoot. The lights above me flickered as I ran. I swear I heard footsteps chasing me, not fast, but heavy, dragging, like something just behind me. I made it to the stairwell and collapsed, gasping, clutching the railing. My ears were ringing, my hands tingling. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. And then I heard it. From the top of the stairwell, echoing down the concrete shaft. Wisham yo kibi men. Why did you open the door? I bolted out of the building and didn't come back until sunrise. Not long after, I ran into an old woman on my floor. She stopped me and asked, "You live next to that unit?" I nodded. She shook her head. "You should move." That man who died there, he was found sitting upright, facing the wall. His body had been there for days. They say his mouth was open, like he'd been trying to say something. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "The chanting you hear, it's not a prayer. It's a calling." That night, the chanting returned. Louder than before, and this time, it wasn't just one voice. It sounded like a chorus of them, overlapping, echoing through the walls. I covered my ears, but it didn't stop. The air in my apartment grew heavy, suffocating. The lights flickered. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging steps, moving from one end toward my door. I peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the footsteps stopped right outside my door. And then came a whisper, directly against the wood. Kiebe men opened the door. The voice stretched the words, syllable by syllable, like it was savoring them. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood there frozen until the sun came up. The final straw came a week later. I came home late from work and saw something that made my stomach drop. The door to the empty apartment was wide open. Inside it was dark, no furniture, no lights, just shadows. But on the far wall, scratched deep into the plaster, were the same handprints I'd seen that first night. Only this time, there were dozens of them, overlapping, clawing, stretching higher than anyone could reach. That night, I packed a bag and left. I didn't even wait for the lease to end. It's been years since then, but even now. Sometimes when I wake up at 2 a.m., I swear, I can still hear that chanting, low, guttural, calling, to dive deeper into the shadows. With real terrifying stories, follow and subscribe to Miss Macabre. Remember, she knows what you fear.